everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Sarah Bruer, and I'm thrilled to be joining you in ministry at Grace United Church in Hanover while McCall is away for the next 3 months. I've been a minister in the United Church of Canada since 2007, when I was commissioned to ministry and settled with Rundle Memorial United Church in Banff, Alberta. 3 years later, I got married and I moved to be with my spouse in Manitoba. From there, I served as the youth and young adult minister for Cambrian Presbytery, which involved a hybrid of online and in-person ministry a decade before the pandemic, followed by 6.5 years in congregational ministry with the people of McGregor United Church. Last summer, my wife and I moved to Listowel, where she accepted a call to the churches here, which brought us back after almost 20 years out west. Since being here, I've returned to school part-time to work on an MSW degree, while continuing to serve the church part-time as someone able to do online pulpit supply. And now, here I am with you for a few months. I'm excited to be journeying together while I'm here. I was wondering what to say to you in this video, and I remembered a Facebook post from a friend of mine last year. She was starting at a new church and she polled her friends to find out what they would want to know of their new minister. So I'm going to attempt to answer some of their questions. First, what is my favorite dinosaur? Well, I have to be honest, I don't know a lot about dinosaurs, so I had to do some research on this one. Based on that, I'd say that the Centrosaurus is my favorite dinosaur, because they are one of the dinosaurs that lived here on the land we call Canada. I also like that they are herbivores, and I like to eat vegetables. What do I do for fun? Well, speaking of vegetables, as you can see in the background, I like to garden. I also knit, paint, quilt, play the piano, read, hike, swim, write letters, and play games. One of the things I'm trying to do this year, and part of why I'm recording outside, is that I'm spending 1,000 hours outside. That's based on the reality that many of us spend 1,000 hours or more every year in front of screens and TVs. What is my ideal vacation? Well, I enjoy road trips a lot. The car that will get me from here at my home to the church has taken me as far east as Nova Scotia, as far south as Point Pelee, as far north as Edmonton, and as far west as Vancouver already. Why am I a minister? So when I was about 3 years old, my dad was a struggling young musician, and one of the local churches hired him as their organist. It was a job that even came with free childcare for me through the Sunday school, which would allow my mom to enjoy some time to herself on Sunday mornings. My mom once told me that she didn't expect me to like church, but I did. Soon I joined the junior choir, signed up for First Communion classes, and became an altar girl. One morning when I was about 9 years old and getting my gowns on before the service, my minister asked me if I'd thought about becoming a minister when I grew up. I hadn't, but I started to then. A few years later, when my family experienced a crisis, my church community rallied around us, and my faith in God helped me through that tough time. By the age of 13, I was sent to the bishop's dinner for young people interested in ministry. At 14, I was easily lured away to the United Church because of its youth programming. Beyond the youth group, I was given opportunities in that church to develop my leadership skills, teaching Sunday school, preaching sermons, representing my church at conferences, filling in for the secretary during her summer vacation, etc. As a young adult, I also had the opportunity to spend 3 summers working at United Church summer camps, to attend national church events for youth and young adults, and I was hired to work as the children and youth minister at a Presbyterian church in Toronto when I was 22. I tell you all of that because the reason I am a minister today is rooted in churches that cared about their young people. At the same time, the reason I'm still a minister today is because I've seen how God's love and grace continue to transform not just individuals, but entire communities. What inspires me? The way of Jesus, nature, kindness, creativity, and hope. Should toilet paper go over or under? Honestly, I don't care. Now, if you don't take the empty roll off and put a new one on, then that's a different story. What about favorite and least favorite foods? So I'm going to tell you up front that food is a challenge for me because of food allergies. I'm allergic to gluten, to dairy, to soy, to onion and garlic, which means that there's a lot of things I can't eat. In addition to those, one thing I do not like is fish. However, my favorite food is potatoes. Where did I grow up? And what's my favorite childhood memory? Well, I grew up on Georgian Bay in the town of Penetang. And a favorite memory from my childhood was going to visit my grandmother in the summers. I especially liked when we would walk to Baskin Robbins for pink bubblegum ice cream. By my way of thinking, I could enjoy the ice cream then, and I could save the bubblegum pieces in a napkin to enjoy later. If I could have tea with anybody living, dead, or fictional, who would it be? The grandma I just told you about, that I used to visit when I was a child. She and I were quite close. Even when she was riddled with dementia and I could only get back to see her in the nursing home once a year, her eyes continued to light up when I would walk in the room. My wish is that every human would have that kind of person in their lives. What would you do with $1 million? I'd follow a lesson that my grandmother taught me. For birthdays and Christmases, she would give me a check. Half for me, half for others. With the half for me, I'd pay off my mortgage and buy a new car. With the half for others, there are many ministries and organizations that I would want to support. Probably half for things like the Mission and Service Fund, Affirm United, the Justice and Reconciliation Fund, and United Church Camps. And the other half for programs beyond the church, like the Food Grains Bank, Habitat for Humanity, Doctors Without Borders, and Amnesty International. What's the best question that a kid has ever asked you? So I've been asked some amazing questions by young people, and it's really hard to pick just one. But my favorite still goes back to my niece. When we were home for New Year's once, when she was 5 years old, my wife and I were doing pulpit supply at my dad's church. In preparation, we had enlisted our niece and nephew to help us make a sample of a paper nativity set. We'd prepared it for any children who might be there that Sunday since there was no Sunday school. So there we were coloring when my niece asked, how come they never include Herod in the nativity sets? Surprised by the depth of her question, I replied that it's probably because Herod was the bad guy in the story, and people really don't want to think about dead babies at Christmas. To this, my niece responded with wisdom beyond her years. Aunt Sarah, you shouldn't call Herod a bad guy. He was just a guy who made a bad decision. That doesn't mean people should leave him out forever. What languages do you speak? Well, English is my first language. I am also fluent, though quite rusty, in French. And I've been learning German as an adult. I know just enough that I can almost ask questions, and I can write postcards in German. Lastly, if you could undo one thing that you did in your life, what would it be? So do you remember me saying that I was hired as a half-time children and youth minister at a Presbyterian church when I was 22? Well, one week when I was there, I got a call from a friend of mine whose husband worked for an airline. As a result, she could get really cheap flights, and she was calling to ask if I wanted to go to Europe with her for the weekend. It was going to cost me $50. At the time, peanut butter was a thing you couldn't just buy there, and she had a friend living in England that she was going to deliver some to. That sounded like a lot of fun to my 22-year-old self. But I had a job to do at the church on the Sunday, and I didn't want to be irresponsible, so I said no. For me, that decision is symbolic of choices I've often made in my life to do what I think will make other people happy, often at the expense of opportunities that might make me happy. So my goal for the latter half of my life is to try and find more balance in that regard. Now, my question for you is, have I answered your questions? If you have others, please feel free to phone or email me with them. I'm also looking forward to opportunities to meet you as well and hear some of your stories. On that note, I'm going to be available for you to drop by and say hello next week. On Wednesday, August 4th, I'll be outside in the churchyard from 2 to 3 p.m. If that's of interest to you, please bring your own lawn chair and we will spread out to ensure social distancing, as well as a mask that we'll wear to help keep one another and our community safe. Similarly, on Thursday, August 5th, you'll be able to find me on Zoom from 7 to 8 p.m. if you'd like to drop by then and meet me there instead. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all this in the next few months. Bye.